City of Stevens Point Plan Commission meeting, recorded June 6, 2022.
Okay, I have 6 o'clock. We will call the regular meeting of the Plan Commission to order. Can we get a roll call, please?
Weeza.
Here.
Kneebone.
Here.
Arnson.
Here.
Cooper.
Here.
Haynes is excused, or she was going to try to join online.
We'll keep an eye out for her.
Okay, Rice.
Here.
And Schuler.
Here. And we want to take this opportunity to welcome Commissioner Schuler. To quote a Godfather line, just when you think you're out, they pull you back in. Jeff retired from the county, and we captured him right away to serve on the Plan Commission. So thank you very much for agreeing to be and serve the community again, or continue serving.
Glad to be here.
Item number 2, let's see, I'm going to share the screen here. Let's do this first. Share. This is getting tougher and tougher because now people are logging in. I want chat, I want this. Participants, admit. I'm going to try to keep this up. So those of you watching here, you're going to see an overlay. Just because I need to try and make sure people who are getting in get in. And our first item for action is the report of the April 4th meeting of the City Plan Commission. Need a motion to approve that. Commissioner Cooper and Arnson. Discussion, comments, changes? I know, Jeff, you didn't really have anything to add to this, so. Thanks. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Next item is a public hearing and subsequent action on a request from Drew Bain, representing Wisconsin Public Service Corporation, for a conditional use permit to perform some upgrades on an electrical substation located at 3214 Hoover Road, with the parcel identified in your packet, consistent with Chapter 23.02, Sub 1, Sub A, Sub 3, Sub B. Adam?
All right, thank you, Mayor. So the request before you all this evening is to perform 3 types of improvements to an existing electrical substation on the east side of the city. First of which is to swap out existing substation infrastructure for new, more higher quality type of infrastructure, which some representatives of the applicant are here in person and can discuss further the specific type of infrastructure. Secondly are some fencing improvements along the perimeter of the property, and then lastly some lighting upgrades. So the left picture on the screen, you can see just a general overview of the property. You see the electrical substation in the center, and this substation provides a nice transitionary period between more of the heavier industrial type uses to the north and east, along with more of the suburban single-family development that exists to the south and to the west. And the image on the right-hand side of the screen shows the proposed site plan showing the location of the proposed substation infrastructure. So next slide, and just provide some more general information. So the request entails an expansion of 2,610 square feet in terms of additional footprint. In terms of the new infrastructure, that's largely going to stay in the same place as where the infrastructure is currently located. The reason for this, the expansion,
I wanted to see,
is more so to shift the location of the fencing to provide some more spatial movement for general maintenance and whatnot when on the property. To provide some context here, so this property was originally part of the town of Plover, and the electrical substation existed prior to boundary agreement being adopted between the city and the town that formally annexed this property into city limits in 2007. At the time of annexation, this use has been considered legal nonconforming since a conditional use permit was not asked for at the time. And since electrical substations are conditional use in all zoning districts here in the city, the request before you all tonight to perform these improvements necessitate the conditional use permit. Overall, staff didn't have any major issues with the proposed request. There is an ample amount of existing landscaping around the property, along with the fencing that will provide some adequate screening towards or for adjacent single-family residents, so staff would recommend approval. And like I said, representatives of the applicant are in attendance and can answer any questions as well.
Okay, before we open the public hearing, I always give commissioners an opportunity to ask any clarifying questions. This is not a time for debate or discussion yet. Do that after the public hearing. But if there are questions that you have that might help clarify the project, Commissioner Schuler.
Do you have to push to tell?
Nope.
Okay. I guess the one question I have is there any change to the ambient or background noise produced on-site as a result of replacing the equipment?
Okay.
Okay.
The answer for those of you who
And
didn't-
can you guys hear me?
Yes, but we are not in a position to take
That's
public
Anna.
comment yet.
That's Anna.
Oh, is that
I believe.
Anna?
Oh, that's
This is
Anna.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I
Anna.
just
Where's
wanted to
Anna?
know that you guys
Anna, are
know
you-
that I'm here.
Anna, are you 3352?
Yes,
Okay, I'm just
right,
gonna.
3354.
Social Security.
3354? Yes, sorry.
Anyway,
My
yeah.
fault. I was reading your social security number. No, I'm kidding. I'm
Right.
kidding.
Great minds.
I know.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
A suitcase full of money.
I'm good. I'll mute myself until I'm needed, though.
Okay,
Okay,
so no questions? All
thanks.
Proof of life.
right. Sorry, I had to put that right in the middle of everybody. All right, so any other questions before I open it up? All right, I will declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on this request is urged to come to the lectern or unmute yourself and provide that testimony. Public hearing is still open. For the third and final time, the public hearing remains open. Okay.
Yeah, was it?
Oop. Mr. Miller,
Yes.
go ahead, you have the
I-
floor.
One of the commissioners proposed a question there, and I didn't hear the answer. I
Oh, the
apologize.
answer, I'm sorry, the
it was
answer was
open.
no.
Oh, so it won't, the noise won't get any worse than it is?
It will not be any different than it is currently.
Okay, perfect. That's really just, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Public hearing remains open. And we'll do one more time. The public hearing is still open. Hearing and seeing no one else wishing to speak, I will declare the public hearing closed. Bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
I would move approval of the request, subject to staff recommended conditions.
Thank you. Motion by Cooper,
Also,
seconded by Kneebone. Snooze, you lose, Pete.
Yeah, I guess.
Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
And that is approved. Sorry, I jumped way ahead on the screen, too. All right, next item is item number 4, which is a public hearing and subsequent action on a request from Tyler Ignatowski for conditional use permit to construct 5 duplexes on 3 unaddressed parcels bounded by North Point Drive and Georgia Street North, with the parcels identified in your packet. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So on the next slide here, you can see, there we go. The left-hand picture on the screen shows, again, a rough overview of the property. The more wooded area in the center, on the southeast corner of North Point Drive and Georgia Street North are the 3 subject parcels in question. Similar to the last request, this provides a nice transitionary period, transitionary space between more of the higher density residential offerings that are located to the east and to the south, along with the more larger lot single-family development to the north within the town of Hull and to the west within the city's limits. And again, just right-hand picture of the screen shows the
sorry.
zoning of the surrounding area, primarily R4, like what the subject properties are zoned as, and then some single-family residential zoning along the perimeter of it. So before you all, as the mayor mentioned, is a request to construct 5 duplexes on these 3 parcels. Now,
The orientation on the screen is flipped, though, so just so you know, it went from north-south. What you see on the screen now is north-south, but it goes the long way.
correct. And I'll preface by saying that the 3 subject parcels are planning to be combined into one as a prerequisite for this development to go forward. And similar to prior duplex developments that's been brought before this commission, having more than one primary structure on the same lot requires a conditional use permit in our zoning code, thus the reason for this request before you all this evening. So here you can see the 5 duplexes shown on the map here. You can see the existing private driveway located to the east of these 5 duplexes. You know, that private driveway has been vetted by our Public Works Department as far as access, traffic, dimensional standards, and there's no objections, and Public Works staff feels that the existing private driveway can handle this proposed development. Likewise, you can see 2 infiltration ponds for stormwater purposes, and again, this has been vetted by our public utility staff, and there's no major objections as well. And then lastly, these 5 duplexes do provide a range of 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom. So the left-hand image, you can see just a rough floor plan of a 3-bedroom, 1-stall garage in the front, I believe about 250, 300 square feet in size. The right-hand picture shows what the front of the duplex will look like. You can see more of that brick facade on the lower third or so of the east-facing wall of the duplex. So as I mentioned, since there's more than one duplex on the same parcel, this would require the conditional use permit. Staff vetted this along with other departments as well, and those conditions as they apply are shown on the screen, you know, relating to garbage collection, relating to erosion control facilities being provided on the site, utility easements, combining of parcels, landscaping plans, etc. So staff would recommend approval, and I believe the applicant is online and can answer any questions as well.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions from the commissioners before we open up the public hearing? Yes, Commissioner Schuler.
I just wanted to verify that the exterior materials on the rear of the building are the same. It's the siding that's indicated on the front elevation of the drawing?
So the image, if you go on the back side,
Let's see.
back slide,
This one? No.
next one. So the right picture, that is going to be the east-facing wall of the duplex.
That's the front
And then on pages, my orientation right here,
You would have the stone
55.
and the vinyl siding facing essentially the private street.
Right.
That's in the middle of the between these proposed and the existing.
And it's just
duplex.
siding in the back, correct?
And just simple vinyl siding in the rear of the
Same
property.
siding all the way around, the front side gets a little bit of the
Yep.
stone treatment. Thank you.
Page 55 of the package shows the designs for the other facing walls.
Okay, public hearing is now open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on this proposal, step to the lectern and provide that testimony. And if we get your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Carrie Summers, and I live at 432 Georgia Street North. We are right in the middle of where this is going to take place. So I have a couple of questions for you. Number one is, what is the ratio of apartments, duplexes, fourplexes, and other rental units on the north side compared to single-family homes? I feel that this is 5 duplexes in that small parcel. I don't see how you can do it. I mean, that parcel is very small, and you have, essentially, are all these driveways coming off of Georgia Street?
I'm sorry, we don't answer questions during the public hearing. We're writing them down.
Okay.
And we'll answer them when we
Okay.
get to the discussion portion.
Okay.
But none of them will be coming off of Georgia Street.
None of them will be coming off of Georgia Street. Okay, so also being that Georgia Street is a pretty narrow road, but there's a lot of traffic that comes on that road, are they going to allow parking behind this on Georgia Street? Because in the wintertime, on John's Drive, they have parking all winter long on the road. Are they gonna allow that on Georgia Street? And what is the rental price per unit gonna be? What are they gonna rent them out for? Is it gonna be lower income, medium income, high income? These are all questions that I think there's many of us on Georgia Street that wanna know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public hearing remains open. Public hearing is still open.
If I may, Mayor, I just wanted to let you know this morning, we did receive one comment from a Mr. John Gardner, just summarizing the request, comments related to having more facade variation on the west-facing walls of these 5 duplexes. These would be the ones off of Georgia Street North, and then just some comments related to screening as well.
Okay. Yeah, and I tend to agree with our former community development director that because it's facing a public street, it's not the front of the house per se, but because it's facing that public street, we should have some variation within the style of facade, because we don't want to look at what's essentially the back of someone's house. We want it to look a little bit different, but that's up for the commission to decide. Public hearing remains open.
This is Diana Mrozinski.
Yes, ma'am.
I live at 424 Georgia Street North. I'm next door to Carrie Summers that just talked. And we pretty much agree with most of the things that she has to say. Water is an issue on our properties. I mean, when it rains, water ponds on the street. And so we wonder what would be across where these duplexes are going to be. You know, if you take away the groundwater from where the trees are, that could present a flooding problem on Georgia. And taking down all of those big trees is going to be an expensive project, I would think. And I have to agree that 5 duplexes in that area seems like an awful lot. There can't be much green space around. And without much green space, soil absorption of the water could be a problem.
Okay, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you very much. Public hearing is still open. Public hearing remains open.
Are the person that is building these, do they get some sort of city incentive?
No.
For doing this? Okay. And what will this do to our taxes where we live? I mean, realistically, for what we pay in taxes, you know, is this going to decrease our value and increase our taxes? That was my last question.
Thank you. Public hearing remains open. Public hearing is still open. And for the third and final time, the public hearing remains. Just thought of it? Sure, go ahead.
My name is Raymond Cal. I live across the street from the convent on Maria Drive. I just want to express my support for the project as it has been laid out in the public notices and in the articles that the Sisters of St. Joseph of St. Francis have put out.
Ray, this isn't anywhere near the convent.
Oh, okay.
This is on the other side of Second Street, closer to Old Wausau Road.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the project, the convent project.
No, sir.
That's the next
Is that
one.
coming up later?
Yep, that's coming up.
Sorry?
That's all right, Ray. That's all right. We're good. Public hearing is still open.
Apologize.
No problem at all. I appreciate people showing up because it does get confusing in here and in some cases very intimidating. Public speaking is not everyone's wheelhouse, so we'll keep the public hearing open again. And we'll call last call for public hearing. Okay, seeing no more people wishing to testify, I'll declare the public hearing closed. We'll bring it back. We've got some questions. I can take a couple of these. The tax rate will not change. That's the same for everybody. Everybody pays the same, what we call the mill rate. It's slightly over $10 per $1,000 worth of, $100,000 worth of value, $1,000 worth of value on your property. So because of this project, your taxes should not go up or down, because the rate will stay the same in all likelihood, but the council will decide that in October, I believe, November. The price per unit, we'll leave that unless you have information on that. The parking, is parking allowed on Georgia? The ratio, we're not gonna be able to give it to you for the north side. We can tell you what it is, apartments to single-family homes citywide, but we can't give it to you exactly for the north side. Director, I know you've been taking notes.
Yep.
You've got some of that data, right?
Yeah, so we can definitely get the ratio based on the request for.
We were about 46% rental, right? Something like
Yeah,
that?
in the high 40s, correct. There was a question about vehicular access. So between Georgia Street and Frederick Street, there's a private driveway that services, I think, 3 existing fourplexes. The garages are facing that private driveway, and so the vehicular access would actually have access off of North Point Drive. So I don't know if we have the overview on here, but
We can do this one.
yep, so you can see right there, there's a private drive, so the vehicles would be accessed off of that private drive. We do allow citywide overnight on-street parking, and so there's nothing specifically that the commission could do to prevent that in this specific area. That is something we're gonna have the Public Works Department look at, just given how narrow Georgia Street is in that area. It might make sense for us to do no parking.
The bottom line is nothing will change in regards to the existing parking on Georgia Street North.
And then there was a question on stormwater management. Along Georgia Street North, there are 2 proposed retention infiltration facilities. So just outside of the existing city right-of-way. So that will manage the site's stormwater management, and arguably will probably also help with the city's stormwater management on Georgia Street. But the Public Works or Public Utilities Department didn't have any concerns about the proposed retention facilities that were proposed along Georgia Street
One
North.
quick second. Diana, can you see the screen share?
Yes,
Okay, so you see on the upper end where it says proposed retention area and filtration area?
well,
It's right under where it says Georgia Street North. If you look straight down
Okay.
from that, there's an oval. And then
Okay.
immediately to the right of that, there's another oval. Those are going to be mandatory retention and filtration areas to help with that stormwater that you had concerns about.
okay, because that's been a problem since we built.
Okay.
And then there was a question on the density of the project. The property is zoned multiple family, and within that, it actually is underneath the density maximums that we have within the R41 zoning district. And so it's not as dense as it technically could be within the zoning code. And because you do have that single-family component to the west of the proposed property, you've got higher density to the east. This does offer a nice transition between those different neighborhoods. So I hope that answers all of your questions.
Yep. And then again, you asked about city incentive. There is none. This is not in a TIF district or anything, so there will be no city incentive for this. Okay, I think we got all the questions answered. So we'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioners, what are your thoughts? I would like us to consider requiring some sort of variation in the facade on the Georgia Street side, which would be the rear of the buildings. But because that's the part facing the public road, I think it's important we have something other than just 5 buildings with siding.
I believe Mr. Ignatowski is online.
Yes.
If you have any questions for him directly.
Yeah, I'm here. I wouldn't be, I mean, I guess my question with that would be, could we do a swap from where the garages are at and make the backs look more decorative and do it that way? Is that kind of what you're recommending or thinking, or trying to do both the garage area and the back of the property?
I would open it up for input from our zoning administrator and anybody else on the commission, but I don't know that I would be opposed to, ideally, I think it would be both sides. that would have that variation.
I would agree.
And our zoning administrator is nodding that we would have that on both front and back, or garage side and not garage side. East and
Is
west.
there a calculation to be used for how much percentage on that particular side needs to be used? Like 20% or
Say
something like
generally it was
that?
25, wasn't it?
Usually, yeah.
25%?
Yeah.
So 25% of the
it's-
surface area?
25% of the surface, not the overall, correct?
What do you mean when you say overall?
The sides, so it'd just
Oh,
be
not,
the
not
front and
including the
back
side, not including the sides, just the east and west
Per
facades?
elevation.
Right,
That's
right.
what he's talking about.
Understand.
Percent
Okay.
per elevation.
Yeah. Thank you,
Understand.
Commissioner Schuler.
I mean, you could just say, you know, a 4-foot masonry's type,
Yeah.
exterior along the, almost a wainscoting on the back of the property.
Mr. Ignatowski, would that be acceptable to you?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that.
I'd be okay with the 4-foot high.
Yeah, just,
That makes it a little bit easier, then we don't have to worry about numbers and percentages and.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, I'm gonna make a motion that the west facade also have, 4-foot, what would you call this?
masonry, style exterior.
Masonry
material.
style exterior, 4 feet from the ground level, extending 4 feet up on both the east and west elevations. Need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Schuler.
This lady has a question.
Well, hang on one second. We're only talking about this stone requirement now, the 4 feet. If you have a comment in that regard, only on that item, you can approach the lectern. If it's something else, we'll wait till after the motion on the floor is addressed.
And that would become condition number 9.
That would become condition number 9, should it pass. So right now, we're only talking about that additional condition. If you have something that you wish us to know in regards to that, approach the lectern, name and address.
Mark Christensen, 1641 Clark Street. As I look at that diagram, it seems to be slightly less than 4 feet because the storm door is probably a 7 foot and it doesn't seem to extend even quite halfway up. So 4 feet would be higher than what's presently presented.
Thank you for that observation. The motion is 4 feet.
You have different architectural attributes along the private drive component. So I think it's within line to require the 4 foot.
Any other comments or thoughts on that? Commissioner Rice?
I guess, to me, what's the primary concern, that the siding of the individual buildings have variation within them, or that there's variation between buildings? I guess, kind of from a community aesthetics standpoint, I personally I'd be more concerned that there's maybe some variation between the buildings, not necessarily that, you know, each building has a few $1,000s of additional stone siding on it. You know, modifying either the 2 or the 3 bedroom units to have a small rear gable, or, you know, just a variety of this even vinyl siding, I think would add some, again, kind of aesthetic nuance that, again, in my opinion, would be kind of more meaningful in terms of creating some diversity.
So, just real quick, I think we are getting in a little into the weeds in terms of the architectural requirements of this specific property. We don't have within our zoning code a lot of architectural authority outside of the Main Street historic districts. And so when we start talking about requiring specific building materials or building colors, I get a little nervous that we're stepping outside of our authority within the conditional use permit. Typically, when you add conditions, they've got to be objective in nature, not subjective. I think we're starting to get really into the subjective nature of the development itself. The applicant has indicated that they are willing to apply the 4-foot masonry block or stone on the west side of the facades of the duplexes. So, I mean, with that, I would just be cautious that we're getting a little too far outside of, I think, really the ability for this body to review the architectural elements of this specific project.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
I have concerns about the drainage and.
Okay,
the
well, we're only on the
Oh, I'm
facade
sorry,
motion right now.
That's right. Nope, not yet.
Yep.
I'll save it.
Sorry, just trying to keep it in order here. All right, so let's vote on that. The motion is to require 4 feet of masonry from the floor, 4 feet up, on both the east and west elevations. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
We have Commissioner Rice dissenting, okay, the motion passes. Now, we are back to the original request as amended. Commissioner Arnson, you had some questions regarding drainage.
Right, and it seems like, I mean, the parcels are gonna be mostly impervious. I think the areas between the structures are gonna remain in vegetative, and the arrows indicate drainage patterns,
That's correct.
drainage directions, I would have.
That's correct.
My take on it. I think those are fairly tight soils up there, so you're gonna have a bunch more runoff. Maybe there's already a fair bit of runoff. I assume those detention basins are sized, and you said that the city approved them. It still just seems to me like a lot of impervious surface, and kind of reflecting back, it seems like a lot of residential property in a fairly small area, again, maybe reflecting on the comments. And then, is there any concern or issues with regard to using that existing private drive? You're putting on, you know, you got 2 and 3 bedroom, 5, 10, 12 residential structures, and how many vehicles is that gonna be? And coupled with the ones that are already on the other side, is there a street flow concern or an accessibility concern just using that one relatively narrow private drive? So I guess I had 2 questions, and.
Very good questions. I'm not the stormwater expert in the city. I will state that our stormwater team has reviewed the proposed project, and the developer has made changes based on those recommendations. So the Public Utilities Department is comfortable with the proposed stormwater management component.
It looks like it has a high overflow dumping out. That would go into the city storm sewer? I assume it doesn't dump it in.
We don't have storm sewers that far north.
So it goes to the drainage.
Right, the high flow overflow would go into the existing swales along North Point Drive, or within the right of way.
All right, I was wondering, is that gonna dump into the town of Hull, and is that an acceptable option? Is there a culvert that goes there as it stays on Stevens Point side?
So it shouldn't affect anything on the north side of North Point Drive any more than it does right now, because the stormwater is designed to stay on site. So that's what Joel and his team, Director Lemke and his team have determined. We review all of these things with our internal processes. So again, the engineering department, streets department, reviewed the plans for that private drive. They don't feel that there's an issue with that amount of traffic as well. They feel it can handle it. Otherwise, we would modify the plans. If it didn't pass city department's review, it wouldn't even make it to the plan commission with a favorable recommendation.
All right. I'll still bring it up.
No, it's good. I want you to bring it up. I want you to make sure that every question you have gets answered. But generally, we try and get those questions answered, before we even bring it to you, but it's good to know. We want that discussion. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I've got a handful, I guess.
Okay.
I guess related to the retention, I'm guessing in order to make those depressions, a fair amount of the trees would have to be removed. It seems like otherwise fairly wooded lots that maybe there would be kind of some natural screening to the backside of these homes from the neighbors on the west side of Georgia Street. But again, I'm assuming a lot of the vegetation is going to have to be removed in order to put those depressions in.
Yep, we could require some additional screening. You see where the setback type is, this line here, you wouldn't be able to put anything in the retention area.
Sure.
But we could require some additional screening in the form of, shrubs.
And if I will say, that is one of the conditions that staff is recommending as part of the request, is to submit a landscaping plan. In past conversations with the applicant, it was stressed prioritize screening on along Georgia Street North and along the southern lot line, given that southernmost duplex, that their proximity to the fourplex directly to the south. I know the applicant has been having discussions with a third-party landscaper, and when the time comes that they bring a plan forth to us.
And Commissioner, you're certainly within your rights if you think that 4-foot screening or 6-foot screening is appropriate. You can either make it a condition or provide that advice to staff, because the landscaping plan has to be approved by staff. If you want something specific in there, you can make a condition, or you can defer to staff and allow them to use their judgment.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with staff making that decision. It sounds like, and if it sounds like the developer is kind of aware that that's likely suggested, I think it makes sense. And it hopefully will help alleviate some of the concern from the neighbors to the west about, high visibility to, again, this relatively dense housing area. I guess my larger potentially concern, by and large, I like this idea. I think it's a good use of the property. It's relatively dense. It seems to fit, again, with some adjacent use. As Mr. Kuhn mentioned, we've had a number of projects kind of similar to this come up in the last few months, where we've done multiple buildings on a single parcel, where we've combined parcels, and I've brought it up before. I guess the trend to me is a little odd, in my fear to some extent is that by combining these parcels and essentially creating one big property, this housing that we're adding to the community, which is incredibly needed, it doesn't necessarily become accessible to very many people. Because instead of having 5, $400,000 duplexes, now we have a $2.5 million property that obviously the applicant is allowed to kind of do what he wants with. But again, my kind of theoretical fear in the future is down the road, to sell these properties, it is now the sale of one property that is not attainable for very many people in our community, whereas a single duplex very much could be. And I think duplexes in general have proved to be valuable for people kind of transitioning through different phases of housing. So I guess I'm curious why we're pursuing this single lot, combining lot option versus dividing the lots differently into 5 separate parcels, or even pursuing kind of a 0 lot line pursuit. I assume these are all kind of, it'd be non-conforming lots based on the code, but we're already, again, making conditional or approving conditions either way. So curious what staff has to say about why pursue this versus the
Do you want
alternatives.
staff, or do you want the developer, Mr. Ignatowski, to answer that? Because that's ultimately.
I can answer that really quickly if you want.
Please do.
Sure.
Yeah. So if you break it up into 5 separate lots, you have certain setbacks and you wouldn't be able to fit 5 duplexes. That's the straightforward, fast answer.
Right.
You'd have narrower duplexes.
Right. Nothing would meet the normal zoning code to do it that way. But again, we're pursuing conditional, conditions anyway. So and we've done a number of planned unit development. So obviously there are additional options. So I guess I would be curious to hear from the city what your thoughts are.
So you try to avoid utilizing like planned unit development unless it's a very specific development that the developer or the city really wants to pursue. And typically in a PUD, planned unit development, you have more of a form-based style zoning code where you are more intense on the physical placement of the buildings within that specific special zoning overlay. It also requires a number of additional steps, including public hearing for the planned unit development. If there's any changes, you have to go through that another round of public hearing as a result. The base zoning here, which is the R4 multiple family 1, essentially allows the developer to combine these lots into one because of the setback concerns that the developer had mentioned. That was the route that they chose to go. Now, if you retain those three lot lines, or those three specific lots, it becomes more problematic because now instead of being 17 feet between the proposed duplexes, you'd have to be 20 feet, essentially. You have to have a 10-foot setback side lot line. And then you start running into some issues of what's considered the rear lot line in some instances. And so, essentially, you're allowed to do it within the zoning code. We do have the conditional use requirement. If you were to combine them into one and wanted more than one principal structure on that zoning lot, you have to go through the conditional use process. But because of how our zoning code is set up, it's probably the easiest and cleanest way is to combine them into one lot, go through the conditional use process, build whatever you see fit. And so the zoning code's there to facilitate development, not necessarily to dictate development, especially that of like housing. Good question, though.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, going on Matt's comment and observation about the, one big parcel versus smaller ones. And again, there's lots of discussion here about making available, housing available to smaller buyers and whatnot. And, smaller individual duplexes would be more doable for a prospective home buyer. So not with regard to this, but I guess something to keep in mind if staff in future, proposals. I don't know if you already do that, steer it in that direction, but I can certainly see advantages of, often we discuss the scarcity of single-family residential and individual new homeowners and property owners. And so I think just following through on that comment, it's something I hadn't thought about, and I think it's worthwhile considering, certainly for future projects.
So, I mean, that's, whenever there's like city finances involved in projects, we have a much heavier hand in design of layout, lot layout, things of that nature. When it's the private sector making 100% of the investment, we're limited to what the zoning code allows us to do. Of course, I think we'd all like to see some more owner-occupied housing in the city. That's something that we've been working really diligently on doing the last several years. But also, kind of, instead of looking at it from the 30,000-foot view, let's go to the 6-foot view and look at these lots as if they were a single family. Even if you had your driveway access off of Georgia Street North, your backyard's a private driveway that abuts fourplexes. Is that the most inviting environment for an investment in single-family residential in that specific lot? I would argue probably not. So because you do have that step down in density as you go east to west, I do think there is value in allowing the duplexes to move forward. It's definitely something we're going to be looking at. We've been talking about having a form-based zoning code instead of the more traditional zoning code that we currently have, but that is a long-term project that we're trying to address.
All right, good, thanks.
Okay. If there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion.
I will move to approve. Do we need to add the,
It's already amended, so
Okay.
you approve the conditional use as amended.
as amended, subject to staff recommendations?
And we noted also that there were some concerns in regard to landscaping, so when the landscaping plan is approved by staff, they'll take that all into consideration. Is there a second? Second, we'll give the second to Rice. Discussion. Ma'am, you had some other concerns, right?
I do.
I need you to come up to the lectern, please. And again, Carrie, if you could just state your name for the record, please.
Carrie Summers. What's going to happen to those power lines? Those power lines run right in that property. And I don't know if any of you guys have driven by there, but I'm still not understanding where they're going to be, where their driveways are going to be. That lot is very narrow.
So.
I'm asking for, before you approve it, to go take a look and double check that that is even approved for 5 duplexes. That's a narrow lot. And if the driveways are gonna go off the parking lot of the other apartment building, it doesn't leave much room for building, and it means that all those trees, all that barrier that you guys just talked about is gonna be taken down. There's gonna be nothing there. They can put a 4-foot hedge in there, and I can tell you exactly what's gonna happen to that. The deer are gonna eat it. So, I really am very worked up yet, because I don't think this has been given enough, looked at. And Mr. Ignatowski, I would love to speak to you personally to know exactly what you're gonna do, because looking at this stuff, to me, there's a lot more to it than what you're seeing on here. So
Carrie,
that's it.
and I can share your contact information if you want to give it, you don't want to do it.
No,
You don't want to
nope,
broadcast
yep,
it here, but
yep.
if you get me your contact information, I'll share it with Mr. Ignatowski.
Yep.
But I can assure you that we have had staff review it, and it will work with the conditions implied. The power lines, I'm not sure if they're gonna bury them or if they're gonna have to move them out.
They're in the public
They have the
right-of-way.
ability to work within the public right-of-way. Mr. Ignatowski can't build within the public right-of-way, so if they do have to move them, that's on the developer, but I don't think they will, because again, it's all in the public
When
right-of-way.
we originally built there 17 years ago, we were told that that was too narrow, that nobody could build there. We were told that. We were told that by the city. You know, granted, yes, it's 17 years ago, but
Ordinances do change.
they do change. They do change. I guess I would love to know, I don't know. This is where I'm at, so thank you. I would love to speak with him.
Thank you.
personally.
Just give me your contact information
that.
tomorrow, and I will pass it along to Mr. Ignatowski. And I assume, Mr. Ignatowski, that I can share your phone number with Ms. Summers?
Yeah, I was actually just going to interrupt and say I'm totally fine with that. So I think you have my contact information. If you want to share it, I'll be glad to reach out, or she can obviously reach out to me. Not a problem.
We do. We'll make that happen tomorrow.
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, the motion before you is to approve the conditional use as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting Ann's out there. Sorry, Ann, thank you. Again, I'll ask, any opposed? Okay, hearing none, that is approved. The next item is item number 5, and that is a public hearing with a subsequent action on a request from the City of Stevens Point to amend the official street map of the City of Stevens Point for the purposes of extending Union Street 410 feet to the north of Maria Drive and extending Academy Avenue 133 feet to the west within the parcel ID identified. This, as Mr. Cal had mentioned, was in conjunction with the convent project. We're extending Union Street in and Academy in to allow those two to connect. And I will turn it over to Adam.
I'll take this one. So, as the commission hopefully recalls, we've been working really diligently on the redevelopment of the convent property. That project is well underway. One of the steps that we have to take, although we accepted the certified survey map when the lot was split and accepted the right-of-way dedication, we do have to formally accept the official street map amendment, which does include adding Union Street going north and then a slight jog to the left-hand side as the future extension of Academy Avenue. I will state that the existing driveway that's offset from the intersection of Union and Maria will be vacated. That will actually go away, and the access to the townhomes and the back of the convent will be accessed off of the proposed Union Street right-of-way. City staff would recommend approval as presented. We did bid this project, and hopefully we'll accept those bids next week. Those bids came in a lot higher than we expected, so, as everything is right now.
Everything is right now. Before we get started, any clarifying questions from the commissioners? Willie's Road extension. Go ahead.
It's not clear to me why the Academy extension is there.
There's a planned west development that could be a phase 2 or phase 3 of this proposed project. For the clarification, it is the Academy Avenue extension is west of Union Street. So the area that's where the mayor's got his mouse right now is actually private drive and is not part of this public hearing. But the really small sliver that jogs to the west at the top of the proposed Union Street extension, that's the Academy Avenue extension. So because the road technically does turn and there is additional right-of-way to the west, that is why it's got the Academy Avenue street name, because if you look at our street grid layout, Academy Avenue comes in off of Division Street. If we would ever to do this, which we wouldn't because there's a cemetery there, extend Academy Avenue through to the Union Street. That's why it's called Academy Avenue. And I get why that might be a little confusing for the non-urban planners in the room.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Yeah, to an extent.
We're only looking at this area right here. See that?
Right.
To the west of Union Street. The Union Street extension runs here,
Yep.
and this would be the extension for future use right away for Academy.
All right. So that's the main purpose for future
It's
planning.
really planning for the future. We've got quite a few of these extensions that are not yet streets, but it's on the official street map, so we want to preserve that in the event that we ever need to run a street through.
All right, good.
Okay. With that, I will declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on these road extensions and the change of the official street map, step to the lectern. Ray, did you want to jump in on this one? Okay, all right.
Hi, my name is Gracia Day. I live at 101 Union Street. And my concern is the traffic on Maria and the additional traffic we will have. People really fly by there. I was wondering if there was any way we could add a stop sign on perhaps Meadow and up near Pacelli to just slow traffic down coming through there. It's hard to back out sometimes onto the street, and that's really my concern, is the speed of the traffic coming through. I mean, the police sit there, and on occasion, but they can't sit there all the time. But I mean, people are driving really fast, especially those high school kids in their big trucks. So that's my concern, is if we could find some way to slow things down, because most people don't even stop at that stop sign. It might improve once it's a four-way stop, but if we could just slow traffic between Division and Second Street, it would be pleasurable.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Public hearing is still open. And for the third and final, no, wait, we gotta do it one more time. Public hearing is still open. Go ahead, Ray. Ray, I need you up here, please, so people at home and watching on the recordings can hear you.
In one of the previous meetings or in a publication, there was talk about extending Meadow Street north into the project as well. Is that still on the agenda?
It's not part of the public hearing component itself, but if there were to be a
tonight.
future development on that portion.
Well,
we'd
there
look-
will be, so.
Yeah, we would look at an extension of Meadow Street north of Maria as well.
Sure.
Yep.
Thanks, Ray. Public hearing remains open. Public hearing is still open. For the third and final time, the public hearing remains open. Hearing and seeing no one else wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and we'll move back to the commissioners for action. Ms. Day, the public hearing part of this is just amending the street map, but we did make some notes, and when that comes to fruition, we'll look at some traffic control measures there.
Thank you.
Commissioners, what are your wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve. For,
Street map amendment?
staff recommendations, yep.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Rice. Discussion.
I do got one more question, not directly related, but I hadn't noticed it before, but Third Street, is that a right-of-way platted up across Maria, and would that be a future
Correct.
right-of-way corridor?
Third Street, which is on the west side of the whole convent development, is already either, it's a partial, let me correct this. There is a full right-of-way of Third Street north of Maria. It's also already been identified within our future street map as well.
Okay, so that's what that is, all right.
It's pretty interesting to see where we've got right-of-way all over the place that aren't yet roads, but, planned for future development when it happens. If you're interested at all, I can get you, all the commissioners, or anyone, a copy of our official street map, and you can see where these right-of-ways are kind of reserved for development.
Once it's amended, that'd be great.
You want to make a note of that? Yep. Thank you. We'll get it up on the website. How's that? Should be up there already, once it's amended. All right, the motion is to approve the amendment request for the official street map of the city of Stevens Point. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 6 was pulled. That will bring that back next month. Item number 7 is a request from Brooke Claysmith, representing Inclusa, for a sign variance to construct a freestanding sign at the property located at 2801 Hoover Road with the parcel identified in your packet, consistent with Chapter 25.14. And let me bring that up. There you go. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So the request before you all this evening is to install one freestanding sign on the northwest corner of the property. So if you go on the next slide, the left image shows the proposed freestanding sign just to the south of the multi-use path at the intersection.
Does everybody know where this is? It's the corner of Hoover and Patch, basically.
Old Delta Dental, yeah.
Yes, the old Delta Dental building.
And then there are two existing signs located on the property, one a little bit farther south along Hoover Road, and then one near the parking lot entrance off of Coy. To provide some details on the proposed sign itself, image on the right-hand side of the screen shows the proposed freestanding sign showing the eight nonprofit organizations that are planning to occupy the northern wing of the building. Some specifics about the sign itself: going to stand 14 feet in height and a little shy under 211 square feet in size. Now, the reason why this request is brought before you all is because our sign code limits properties to having one freestanding sign per street frontage, and since there's already a freestanding sign along Hoover Road, having a second one along that same street would require this sign variance. So overall, in discussions with the applicant and taking a look at the proposal, there's really two things that stand out as to why the applicant is requesting the sign variance, and the first of which, as I alluded to, is to better identify these new nonprofit organizations within this northern wing of the building. It's a pretty large, expansive building in the area, so better identifying where these organizations are going to be occupying space, roughly 750 to 1,000 square feet in size within the building. That's going to serve a long way to better identify where folks should enter the property. Second is really, as I mentioned, to better identify how do you get into the property if you want to seek the services of one of these nonprofit organizations. And staff is in support of having the proposed freestanding sign at the requested location, really for two reasons. One, there's existing street painting on Industrial Park Road that would allow folks heading eastbound to go straight. So there's the existing infrastructure in place to handle the requested traffic control measures. And then secondly, it's staff's opinion, having the freestanding sign here, having traffic divert from Coy Drive but onto Hoover Road would be beneficial in the sense that there's already a fair amount of traffic along Coy Drive with Gamber Johnson just to the north and east, Mid-State Technical College's future facility to the east. That'll incur some additional traffic along Coy Drive. So ways that we can try to reduce that for folks wanting to enter or to provide access into this property would go a long way. So staff would recommend approval, and there is a representative of the applicant on the call, I believe, and can answer any questions as well.
Okay. This is not a public hearing, so we're just going to open up the floor to questions. If you have a question or comment, join us at the lectern, or if you are a commissioner, just speak, I guess. Pretty easy. A motion would be in order as well.
Well, okay, I will actually move to approve. I think it's a really good idea. A lot of people come in off Patch Street there, and to know what's in the building right away, I think will be a big help to people that want to use the services that all these nonprofits provide. So I think it's a good idea.
Okay, great. We have a motion to approve the request as, with staff recommendations.
Yep.
We have a second. Seconded by Arnson. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'll be abstaining.
Okay, noted. Commissioner Schuler will be abstaining. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Up.
Sorry, sir. Please forgive me.
You've been doing this long enough now, Ron.
Right? Come on. You've been alderman for like 6 weeks already.
Yeah, this is little Ron
Ron.
Carlson,
Hey,
3356.
Ron, what does that sign say right at the bottom?
Don't touch it, but I can't help touching it. Anyway, sort of off topic, I love the idea of the sign, but I've had concerns from people who work in the area too. Is there any plans, as we talked about, residents talked about stop signs, any plans for traffic control devices on Patch or Coy? Because when 3 o'clock comes, it's a beehive over there. And I always worry about people southbound coming down the hill and someone trying to make a left-hand turn onto Hoover, or Country Club, I should say, from Patch Street. So I was just going to throw that out as long as we're discussing, and I'm sorry I touched the microphone.
That's okay. Alderperson, the short answer is yes. When the Coy intersection was redesigned.
Not on the agenda.
Good point. Give me a call tomorrow, Alderperson, and I can tell you about all the plans.
Thank you.
I got a cease and desist from the city attorney. Thank you for reminding me, because sometimes we take quite a few liberties with the scope of discussion. But because it's not on the agenda, we're not able to talk about that. We're only talking about a sign variance, not road. But feel free to give me a call tomorrow. We have a motion and a second, correct? Any other discussion regarding the sign variance? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Did Dan take off already? He stepped out for a call, okay. Our Parks Commissioner is out, so if there are any quick questions, I think most everybody here knows about it. This, item number 8 is a request from the city of Stevens Point to perform improvements to Gerke Park and to the construction of an addition to the KB Willett Ice Arena located at 631 Michigan Avenue with the parcel identified in your packet, consistent with chapter 23.01 sub 11. I think most of the commissioners should be familiar with the project. We've outlined some of the things in your packet. Adam, did you want to add anything?
Nothing further outside of just, we've had similar projects in the past, but any improvements to public facilities requires plan commission approval, not only in our sign code, but also through state statute. So that's the reason why this request is before you all. But the image on the screen here shows the proposed site plan, the addition to the Willett Arena, and then the improvements around Gerke Park as far as the pedestrian traffic area, and the pedestrian sidewalks, I should say.
And Director Kramer has returned now, so if anybody has any specific questions, we'll call him up. But I think most everybody's kind of familiar with this multi-million-dollar project that's really mostly done through fundraising anyway. Some great community partners and a nice project to make Gerke Field and Community Stadium some much-needed upgrades. Comments or questions? Or a motion?
I would move approval of the request, subject to staff recommended conditions.
Thank you. Motion to approve by Commissioner Cooper. Is there a second? I'll second. Okay. I'll second. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 9 is one that's kind of near and dear to me. It's a request from the city of Stevens Point to seek membership in the AARP network of age-friendly communities. Back in May, on May 11th, we were chosen to host a discussion regarding age-friendly communities, and we talked about 880 cities and kind of communities for all. And through that, I learned a little bit more about the AARP Age-Friendly Community Network status, and Adam came to me and said, hey, what do you think about applying for this? And I thought it was a great idea. So before you is a request for us to seek that membership through resolution. The resolution before you is one of the steps involved in that membership. The advantage to this is not only does it show our commitment to make sure that we have transportation and mobility accommodations for everyone, but it's more than just the mobility. We want to make sure that everybody has an equitable access to all of our amenities, and this also offers up some opportunities for additional grants to help make that stuff happen. So I would certainly recommend approval of this, and if anybody has any questions, or Adam, do you have any additional comments?
Nothing further to add.
Okay. If anybody has any questions or comments, if not, I would entertain a motion to make that a resolution approved.
One of the reasons I chose to come back to Stevens Point is because it's a great city to get old in. So, yeah.
All right, Commissioner Schuler?
Recommend approval.
Thank you. Motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll
Seconded by
second that.
Alderperson Nebo. Discussion there.
Mark Christensen, 1641 Clark Street. I just wanted to mention Director Kanowski and I had a chance to attend the Wisconsin Downtown Action Council Downtown Summit. And this group, AARP, was one of the primary sponsors of that too. And it's a lot of really good stuff. So I'm glad we're looking at an ongoing membership in that. So I think it's a great idea.
Great. Thank you.
strongly liked it.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is approved. If anybody wants more information on that, I found that 880 Cities was a pretty valuable resource. Item number 10 is the Community Development Department's annual report. That was also included in your packet. Adam, anything you want to touch on, or Director Kanowski?
We do provide to this body and to the council every year a summary of our annual report. The Community Development Department is really made up of 6 different divisions: economic development, permit inspection or building permits, historic preservation, neighborhood improvement, planning, zoning, and property tax assessment. Within that, we have about 13 staff members, so we have a lot of one-person divisions. So you can kind of see through 2021, we had a very good year comparatively. Our total net new construction ended up right around the $49 million mark, which is a really good year for the community. Despite everything that happened in 2020 and 2021, the ongoing pandemic, inflationary supply chain issues, really pleased with how the department handled the uncertainties of the economy and continue to push projects and push things through the pipeline. Because as this body knows and as the council knows, in order for us to maintain the services that we have to have net new construction. So really pleased with it. Really happy with how the staff managed this year. The only other major thing I'd like to point out, and trust me, if you really want to get into the weeds on this, let me know. I can go over everything for you on one-on-one, but I don't want to bore those who are listening on the radio. Sharon Patoka, our assistant city assessor for 22 years, retired in September. And she is very much enjoying retirement. And so we did have some staffing changes where Sandy Kratzky, who is our city property appraiser, moved into the assistant assessor position. We did not refill the property appraiser position. Instead, in 2022, we brought Chris Kleismith on as our neighborhood planner and economic development specialist. He started last week and has been already a much welcomed addition to the department. I no longer feel as though I'm drowning in work, and I think my hair is starting to grow back a little bit, so. No. That's all I have. Would recommend approval, and it'll go to council for their consideration as well.
Thank you. Any comments? Questions or a motion to accept the report and place it on file?
With our luck, it'll be his mustache that grows back.
How about a motion?
Well, I will move to approve the report
you.
and place it on file.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
This seconded by Cooper. Discussion there? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. This will be available on the city website. Give it a day or two, but very likely tomorrow. And the last item on our agenda is our director's report. Director, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Northside Yard, that building number 2 is completed, and like complete as in they have final occupancy. We did talk to the developer. They do plan to break ground on building number 3 in August. And so they'll continue with the redevelopment of the former Lullaby site. If you haven't noticed, the Great Northern Distillery project is in the ground and is currently is being constructed. Expect a ribbon cutting, a groundbreaking in the coming weeks as part of that redevelopment project. The Banter mixed-use project is well underway as well. They have the first floor pretty well framed out, and they'll start the second floor fairly soon. And the convent continues to move forward as part of the redevelopment. The asbestos abatement is continuing. That was a big undertaking as part of the overall development. So we don't have the monthly report. Unfortunately, Maria had her father-in-law passed away, and so she wasn't able to complete the monthly report in time for this meeting. So our thoughts are with her family as they go through this challenging time. So we'll have 2 reports for you next month.
Okay. And with that, our agenda is exhausted, and we are adjourned at whatever time it is. 7:11 is what I have.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.